Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now today's first story comes from Gonzo Fish, and it says, my 31 male wife, 37 female, will no longer let me pursue my hobbies. Exactly as the title implies. She says I'm not allowed to pursue my own hobbies anymore, as they are unhealthy. Before our marriage 7 months ago, I was interested in all sorts of things, playing video games for at least a few hours per week, collecting Star Wars figures. Some may say that was a bit childish anyways, but I enjoyed it nonetheless, painting Warhammer 40k, etc. These are things that I've done since my early teens. My wife wanted us to make healthy lifestyle changes after our marriage, which at first I took as just eating healthier and exercising, etc. I was totally on board for it. Everything was fine until I went down to the basement one day and noticed all of my Star Wars figures gone from the display shelf. All that remained were some limbs from a few of the figures. My wife was at work, so I sent her a text asking what happened to them. In the meantime, I rummaged through all of the garbage and finally found the figures in the bigger garbage next to the garage. Most of the cards were torn up and the figures dismembered, while others were completely burned or melted. I took a picture and sent it to her, asking if she did it. That night, after not replying to any of my texts, I confronted her. It turned into a huge argument about how my hobbies are immature and that she was repulsed by them, even threatening to not have sex with me until I gave them up. In the heat of the moment, I agreed with her, if only to get her to stop yelling at me. We haven't talked about it since, and I've unfortunately been abiding by her rules for the past 7 months. Though I've been secretly playing video games, buying figures, etc., she only found out about it one time, and she destroyed it immediately. I can't keep this up any longer. I want to have my own hobbies without her getting upset. What is the best way to bring this subject up again, and how can I let her know how much my hobbies mean to me? You absolutely get yourself out of that situation ASAP. This is an abusive situation. She's isolating you from the things that you enjoy, destroying your possessions, and then trying to use sex as a weapon to try and control you. If you think about it in your own head that you're hiding your hobbies, it just shows how unhealthy everything has become. I have 1,000,001 hobbies. I sometimes paint Warhammer, I do a lot of art, occasionally crochet. I love having hobbies. And so do millions of grown adults who also enjoy these things. My brother is a huge Star Wars collector, and if someone went immediately to try and take those away by destroying them, etc., there's no way past that for me. That'd be it. It's simply abusive, but a commenter says that this is abusive. She loved you for years while you did your hobbies, so what's changed now? She's shaming you for your passion and throwing out and destroying your stuff without talking to you about it. Was this a long time argument? Did she get after you for gaming/having collectibles, or was it just one day she had enough? We had a few small disagreements in the past about me playing video games, but it was mainly just because I had played for too many hours. She never said a word about any of my collectibles. Commenter says, you are 31 years old. Your wife doesn't get to let you do stuff. You get to do stuff on your own terms. She's being completely unreasonable and very controlling. Single use pseudonym says exactly this. Marriage doesn't mean she's your mum or your boss. You are still your own person. Yeah, take your partner into consideration and all, but Jesus fuck, your wife, husband, partner doesn't have the right to tell you what you're allowed to do. Other controlling partners are not healthy, not sustainable, and don't make for a happy environment. Dad of two boys replies saying the melting and ripping up Star Wars stuff is insane. How would his wife feel if he decided he only wanted to see her in revealing clothes, so he just cut up and threw out all of her favorite clothes but kept the slutty ones? OP edits the post and says, thank you all so much for the words and support and guidance. It truly means a lot. Getting a different perspective on this has made me realize that she may be going through some internal or mental issues. She was the love of my life before all of this, and I'm not going to give up on her just by getting a divorce without knowing the reason for her acting this way. I'm going to ask if she'd be willing to go to a therapy session and move on from there. Opie adds another edit and says, currently at my best friend's house, drafting an email to send to my lawyer first thing in the morning. I decided to hook up my Xbox in the living room television and gauge what my wife's reaction would be when she came home from work and saw me playing. She immediately went to our bedroom and slammed the door. I walked in on her angrily texting something on her phone before she screamed at me that I was going back on my promises and that playing games is unhealthy. I kept telling her that I deserved to have my own hobbies, and she told me that no real husband has those kind of hobbies. I basically told her that she was free to go find a real husband, and I packed a small bag and drove to my friend's house. I feel kind of relieved, but also sick to my stomach. I will keep updating when I can. You are all so supportive and deserve to be kept in the loop. The top commenter to that edit says, I'm going to be real with you. You cannot stay with this abusive woman and live a happy life. Divorce sucks, but admitting you made a mistake in choosing a partner and moving on now is better than admitting it after wasting 5 or 10 or 20 or more years being unhappy in this mess. Now, here is another perspective. My fiance is not into video games or action figures, but I still have a ton of video games and action figures displayed prominently in our living room because I'm into them and she likes when I'm happy. That's how healthy relationships work. Edit 3. Opie edits the post again and says, my wife has been texting me non-stop, asking where I went and telling me to come back to the house. She even claimed she was pregnant and that I was abandoning my own child, only to backtrack a few minutes later. I'm making sure to have all these texts in case my lawyer thinks they could come in use. A couple of days after that, Opie adds edit 4 and says, spent the morning talking to my family and a few other of my friends about the situation. They all agree that a divorce needs to happen, whether or not she is mentally ill. My sister even said that she had a bad feeling about her, but saw how happy I was and didn't want to impose at the time. My lawyer has suggested not to confront or communicate with my wife until divorce proceedings can be put in motion. Currently going to my house while she is at work to gather my valuable belongings. And then a little over 2 months later, Opie adds another one and says, edit 5. Not sure if anybody is still keeping up with my post, but I figured I'd give another update. The divorce proceedings are currently underway. My ex-wife has been incredibly apologetic for not only the main incident in my post, but also for how she's been treating me in general. She also agreed to pay me a lump sum for the figures. We came to a mutual agreement in terms of the value. Overall, she's been acting surprisingly reasonable throughout all of this. I feel like this is a positive turning point in my life. Thank you all for giving me the courage to finally take action. And after that one, I was just like, good on OP for actually following through with that divorce. I just hope that they don't turn around and get back together, because she seems to be changing again, because she's, and quoting OP, she's been acting surprisingly reasonable throughout all of this. It just feels like another attempt at manipulation to me. And there's people mentioning mental health issues, which there's always the possibility, but as we've seen time and time again, sometimes people are just arseholes as well. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's move on to another story. Now, there is a couple of warnings on this story that I am going to read out. It talks about struggles with weight and mental health, and generally the mood on this post is sort of very dark and bleak. So as always, if you do want to skip it, please feel free to do so. Timestamps are always down in the description and along the timeline below. Thank you. This story is from @SantaChick, and it says 28 female. My dad looks like Santa, 60 male, and acts weird about it all year round. A little weird. 10 years ago, mum, 53 female, left dad, 62 male. Dad gained a lot of weight and started going mountain man. Kids started asking if he was Santa and he went with it. Now it is part of his identity, to be Mr. Santa. He keeps his beard long, wears a lot of red, and keeps gaining weight to look the part. Other than being concerned about his almost 150 pounds weight gain in 10 years, he's also taken it over a line. It was fine at first because it was only seasonal and he handed out little prizes and candy canes to kids. Now that my eldest sister Jane, 35 female, had her 2 kids, 5 female and 4 male, Dad wants to be called Grandpa Santa. The kids tell everyone Santa is their grandpa and are super excited about it. Jane hates the idea that her kids are being lied to, and I've told them it's just a game. But my dad does this stupid thing where he winks and goes, "It's our little secret," when they ask. So the kids are still convinced their grandpa is Santa, but also thinks their mother is too old to believe or bitter. It's stupid. We want to talk to him now before it gets worse. Now that the kids are older and my middle sister Megan, 33 female, is expecting her first kid. Everyone has said it needs to be addressed. The wee one is due in June. So we're trying to do this now. So dad has time to de-Santa before Christmas season, which seems to start before Halloween in our area. So we are just not sure how to tell my dad to stop. I could use some advice. Thanks. How do we get my dad to stop? OP added some more info on this and said, Jane feels it is unhealthy to have a real person constantly playing mythical Santa. If he had just dressed up, played the part, then went back to the North Pole, metaphorically, during the rest of the year, it wouldn't be too much of an issue, I don't think. It's really hard to see dad like this. He has a lot of health problems from the weight gain, and I think he might have cut his life short because of it. He's close to 350 at this point, and he isn't a particularly tall man. It's lots of stress because he takes the Santa thing very seriously. OP talks about what she thinks made it worse in her father's life. OP says, I know it got worse when mum married again. He feels like he isn't special. I know the cause and that he is lonely, but it's very alarming to see him miserable, but trying so hard to be Santa. And he was dating a really nice woman for about 2 years, but my mum remarried. He got caught up in the Santa thing and they broke off. It wasn't a huge thing, but I feel the weight gain and continued insistence that she play along made her uncomfortable. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, but it just feels like, dad's using Santa as some sort of coping mechanism for, possibly depression or because of the divorce, etc., etc. And it gives him some kind of purpose, some attention and, connection with people. And the only way to approach this is with love and being gentle and saying, we're concerned about your health and the way that this is going. Maybe talking to a professional if he's up for it. But it was around 8 days later that OP updated their post and says things are not very jolly around here. I, 28 female, took the advice from the post and then talked to someone about it. I got a therapy session and talked for about 2 hours. At the very end of it, I figured out a few things that just weren't working for me. It was those things that the therapist suggested I bring up to my dad, 62 male. I went to talk to dad about it. He didn't want to hear it, but he actually listened and we had a good heart-to-heart. I said, Dad, I need to talk to you about Grandpa Santa. He said yes. OP said, I know you aren't Santa and the kids know it as well. It causes issues with Jane and her husband. It needs to stop or only happen around Christmas. On top of that, I'm concerned about your weight. I just want you around when I decide if I want kids or not. I would like you to get help and will go to sessions with you if you agree. And Dad started crying, and he finally told me he knew he had an issue. He just didn't know how to solve it. He was afraid the kids wouldn't love him anymore and that we would leave like Mum did. I told him that I would help him with whatever he needed, but that Mum wasn't coming back, so he needed to move forward. I said I loved him, not the Grandpa Santa, and that he needed to work on losing the weight or he wouldn't make it to the kids' high school graduation. So everything was really good for a few days. I got Dad some exercise clothing. He picked red. I let it go because we were making progress. And he went to the pool with me. We actually had been doing about 30 minutes exercise at the gym and he was looking really happy. I really saw changes in him, especially when a little kid asked if he was Santa and he said, no, I'm Bob. I told Jane, 35 female, about it and she said that while it was good steps, she was not bringing the kids around until we stopped with the Santa business, which came down to she wanted him to shave his beard. I told her that would not be a good idea, that he was making progress and we should be more concerned with his health, not his beard. She said until the beard was gone/trimmed down, she wasn't bringing the kids around him. She had been talking to people and they suggested he was too mentally ill to be around the children at all. I told her it was fine, but she needed to leave Dad to me then. Well, the dumb idiot told my dad all this, and now he refuses to do anything because he already lost people he cared about. He won't talk to the therapist and he comes to the pool, but he looks miserable doing it. Generic Dreadhead says, it sounds like you took this on as a personal project. Why don't you all sit down like adults, you and your two sisters, and speak to your dad about it? Some might use the word intervention. I don't know if that applies or if they are still a thing / frowned upon. Sounds like despite them being the ones with kids / baby incoming, they've been more or less happy to let you sort out the Santa thing. I don't like Jane. The fact that she trusts that she has been talking to people and trusts their grand sweeping statements more than her family is pretty telling. Opie says, I took it on because I thought it might be better to have one person helping and not a bunch. With how my sisters can get, it is complicated. It was working too. But I'm hoping with some weight loss, we're down 2 pounds, he will be a bit more happy. Slytree says, way to go, Jane. It's a fucking beard. Just let it go. Opie says, I don't even care about the beard. He's obese. A lot of obese men have beards. I'd like to see him healthy again. He can look like Gandalf at this point for all I care. I just want my dad back. I am literally knocking on my head right now thinking, what the fuck was Jane thinking? You recognize that your dad is in a vulnerable place mentally right now, especially around people abandoning him. And what does she go and do? Holy shit. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from Alexander Thompson, who says, I, 17 male, think that it's time I need to thank my stepmom, 42 female, for being there for me. It wasn't until yesterday that things hit me. At 4 PM I was doing some math and then I felt I really needed a break. So I walk about the room and then go over to my other desk to read the Bible. And then I did something which I don't do that often. I opened the drawers and dusted the family photo album. I tried to revive these old memories as I looked at pictures of my fun and carefree childhood days. And then, as I flipped the pages, I come across a change, a transition. The change was special, rewarding and much needed. I went from being the child of a single parent to have a stepmother. That was when I was 3 years old. I knew that she was my stepmother since the beginning. I wasn't too young to not remember what happened. Fast forward 14 years. She's still here and she's still there for me. She treats me as if I was a biological child, and I can't imagine growing up without her. From toilet training as a toddler to math homework at elementary school, as my emotional support and as someone who I can trust, bank on and look up to, she's filled the void. And I never realized the significance of the role that she played in my life, until now. I felt guilty, thankful, and sorrowful all at the same time. It was almost as if I had taken her for granted. Does she feel the same about me? Why didn't she have children of her own? Why did she treat me as her own? Is she regretful for what she did? Is she happy? Jesus, I can't sleep. It's 6 AM in Columbus and I've been up since 3 AM. I can't sleep. My questions remain unanswered and I don't know if I should talk to my mum about this. Does she expect me to be thankful for all that she's done for me? Is she treating me like her own son because we both have brown hair? Does she feel satisfied for having me in her life? Because I sure am indebted to pay her back for her care. What's Dad gonna say about this? Does he have an explanation? I feel like an arsehole for all the times that I screamed at her when I was an adolescent, immature and stupid. How did she deal with all of that? Why did she have to go through all that? I feel so bad about myself. I feel like I'm on the verge of falling off the edge of a cliff. And then I made this account. This is the first time I'm using it. I still have no idea how this works. As a student, I have no time for something like social media and connectivity, but I really need some advice on this and I'm really disturbed. The top commenter said to OP on this one, at 17, for you to come to that realization is completely awesome. She's your mum, even if she didn't give birth to you. When she married your dad, she knew you were an added bonus and decided she would take on that role. It is never too late to tell her how you feel. I don't think you took her for granted. I think you're a child growing up. No kid grows up thinking, wow, my parents sure do a great job putting pork chops on the table and helping me with math. It's part of growing up and realizing the sacrifices people who love you make. You're a pretty awesome kid. Now go tell your mum how awesome she is. Oh bloody hell, don't get those onion ninjas started already. Anyway, 5 days later, OP updates their post and says, I did it. I told her everything that I wanted to tell her, asked her the questions to which I could find no answer. But things did get a little delayed because I was waiting for the right time to do this. And yesterday, the 28th of February, was the day it happened. I had to plan things out. I wrote a brief letter and I gave her the family album, etc. But all of these ideas were inspired by the advice that was given to me by some very nice people on my last post. A big thank you to all of them. Presentation. I tore a page from my waste book. Watch The Birth of Calculus to understand what I meant by that. And I wrote the words "thank you" at the top of the page, titling it in a manner that will reduce the conspicuousness of the situation. I kept things as simple and brief as possible because I believe that beauty lies in simplicity. People always screw things up by overdoing stuff. The letter. Mum, there's a lot I have to tell you, but I'll be keeping this brief and saving the others for later. I thank you for always being there for me. I thank you for never letting go of me. Thanks for all the values that you've taught me. Thanks for raising me in a very nice way. Thank you for helping me become the person I am today. And as I look back at the past, I've been taken aback by the way I screamed at you, took you for granted, had a bad perspective about you. And I'm thankful that you stayed by my side all through those stormy adolescent years of my life, where I had no control over my rational self. I'm very sorry that you had to go through all that. It's just that I came to the realization of this only a few days ago. That's what I wrote on that sheet of paper. I then placed that sheet in the family album, which has some of the earliest pictures of us together. I told her that there's something important that I needed to tell her, and I handed the book to her just before she was about to watch America's Newsroom at 9 AM ET. Reactions. Spoiler alert, we broke down together. She put on her glasses and opened the book. She looked at me and said that she loved the days of her youth, and then I told her to read the letter that I had written for her. She replied, "A letter? I don't understand where this is going." And then she read it. When she was done reading it, she looked at me with tears welling up in her eyes, and she said, "No, I need to be thankful to have someone who could acknowledge this." She couldn't hold it no more. She broke down, I broke down, I'm breaking down as well. We broke down on each other's shoulders. She said that it's a day that she won't forget because it made her feel successful in raising up a child that would reflect the same care to her. She said that she wanted to be my mother and take care of me as her own child because she saw me as her own child. But now, I'm just going to turn this one straight to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being involved. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.